every car guy has that moment when a routine engine rebuild turns into something way bigger. For me, it started with a bad cam and ended with a cracked block. Before I began my GTO's restoration, I knew the engine's cam was bad. But after having the block hot tanked and magnafluxed, I learned what every car guy dreads. The block was cracked. This engine is original to my GTO, and I wanted to keep it with the car. Fortunately, I found a professional engine builder with more than 50 years experience building engines from everything from hot rods to dragsters to circle track cars. And what's even more important, this particular builder had lots of experience building Pontiac engines. So I knew he was the right guy to build my motor. Come along with me as I share the story of my GTO's engine rebuild, the setbacks and the triumphs of seeing this little 389 exceed our expectations on the dyno test. The engine rebuild for my GTO was one thing on this DIY restoration that I was not about to attempt myself. When it was time to rebuild the engine in the GOAT, I started searching for the right person to do the job. I wanted someone with lots of experience, obviously, but especially I wanted someone with experience with Pontiac motors. And after an exhaustive search, which I did mostly online, I found the right man for the job. And I'll share that information with you a little bit later on in this video. Before pulling the engine out of the car, I knew that I had a bad lobe on the camshaft. This was something that I discovered actually not terribly long after I initially bought the car. The engine wasn't running well at that time, so I took the car to a local shop, which I had experience with for a tune-up. And during that tune-up process, the mechanic put a bore scope into each one of the cylinders. And he discovered that the intake valve on the #1 cylinder was not opening all the way. Well, it was at that point that I suspected that I had an issue with the cam. So that being said, let's take a look at the camshaft that was in the engine at that time and the one that we removed from the engine during the rebuild. In this box right here is the camshaft that we pulled out of the engine during the rebuild. And get it out of the box here for you. Anyways, that's the old camshaft. It's the old flat tappet style cam. I also saved a couple of the lifters. This one is actually a good lifter. It's in pristine condition, and this was the bad lifter that we pulled out with it. And so I'm going to move around to the other side of the camera, and I'll get a close-up zoom in on these components to kind of show you exactly how the camshaft failed. Okay, so anyway, the camshaft, I'm going to try to zoom in on this here right here and kind of give you a little bit of a comparison. So this right here is a healthy cam lobe that you can see, and there's another that might be easier to see on that one right there. But you can see the peak of the lobe is it's nice and prominent anyway. And so this right here is the cam lobe that failed. And this is the lobe for the #1 cylinder intake valve. And you can see right there that the lobe, the point of the lobe is completely gone. You can kind of compare it to the one next to it right there, which looks pretty normal. But that one is absolutely completely gone. And anyway, all the rest of the lobes on this camshaft look pretty darn good, but that one, it's right there, was the one that caused me to have to rebuild the engine. Set that down for a moment, and we'll take a look at the lifter. So here's a healthy lifter. You can kind of see the surface of it right there, nice and flat. And then there's the bad lifter. You can see how that's concave right there. Kind of put the two side by side, and you can kind of see it. And also here, zoom back on that, and you can see that the height of that lifter is considerably shorter than the other one. So obviously no doubt here that this camshaft was bad. After I delivered the engine to my engine builder, he actually was pretty great about the whole thing. He actually invited me to remain in the shop with him during the disassembly process, which was great because I was able to take and learn more about the condition of the internal components of the engine, obviously besides the camshaft. So I was actually very, very pleased with that. Once the disassembly of the block was complete, the block was sent to the machine shop to be hot tanked and magnafluxed. The magnaflux inspection revealed that the block was cracked. That really was not news that I wanted to hear, but fortunately it was repairable, and it was repaired using a process known as cold metal stitching. And I think maybe the brand term is lock and stitch method or something like that, I'm not sure. Anyway, here's an image of the cracked block during the magnaflux test, and then an image of the repaired block using lock and stitch. I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce you to my engine builder. His name is Alan Gold of Gold's Garage. He's located in London, Ontario, Canada. Alan is a very accomplished engine builder, and he has more than 50 years experience building engines for everything from hot rods to dragsters to circle track race cars. He's also an experienced racer himself and a crew chief. This is a picture of Alan standing next to my engine block after it came back from the machine shop. And here are also some other images of my engine while it was in the process of being rebuilt at various stages of the rebuild process. And as you can see from these images, the quality of his workmanship is first rate. Another thing that I really liked about having Alan as the builder for my engine, part of the process of the build process, he completely blueprints the engine, and all of the documentation for the engine build itself, the components being used, and all the measurements he took during the blueprinting process are included as part of the work that he does when he rebuilds an engine. After all of the work is done, like I said, and all of the details of the build and the build process and the blueprinting, he actually compiles and puts together a book for you, and includes all of the everything that was done to the engine and all of the there's so much stuff in here, it's find everything. But anyways, all of the data and things like that for the blueprinting process, he does Excel spreadsheets so that you have, every measurement of everything that was done to the engine. So I found that to be really terrific. These are some images of the reconditioned heads and also images of the engine during the reassembly process. If you look closely at the heads, there's a casting mark in them. And I've got a trivia question for you to see if you can answer. Can anyone tell me what these casting marks in the heads signify? I'll give you a hint. There's also one on the block on this one too. But they look this similar anyways. But anyways, if you know what these casting marks mean, leave me a comment in the comments section. I'm sure some of you will probably be interested to know what exactly the changes that we made to the engine from its stock configuration. And so here's what we ended up with. I'm going to read this to you because I don't have it all committed to memory. But it's bored 30 over. The deck height is 2 thousandths, approximately 2 thousandths. I'm using an Edelbrock intake manifold and a Quick Fuel 750 Slayer series carburetor with a vacuum secondary. We converted it obviously from the old camshaft to a hydraulic roller cam. The engine, as you probably saw some of the earlier pictures, it had roller rockers on it from a previous rebuild before I owned the car, and we retained roller rockers on this build as well. The new cam, the roller cam that we have in the car, is a Comp Cam's XR276 HR roller cam. Lift is 503 on the intake and 510 on the exhaust. Duration is 224 on the intake and 230 on the exhaust. The LSA is 110, and the calculated compression ratio is about 10.3 to 1. My goal with this rebuild was to have a solid, reliable engine that could run on pump gas. I was not interested in building a high horsepower engine. I just wanted a nice cruiser. Once the engine was finished, the engine was run on a test stand to complete the break-in process before we sent it off to the dyno. And here are a couple of short videos that my builder Alan emailed to me with the engine running on the test stand. As you can see, sounds pretty good. I elected to run the engine on the dyno after the build was complete. This cost me a little bit extra, but in my opinion, it was well worth the added expense. Deciding to run the engine on the dyno after the rebuild was probably one of the smartest decisions I made. It allowed us to really accomplish several different things. First of all, obviously, it allowed us to completely break in the engine and optimize the timing. It also allowed us to take and try out different carburetors to find out which one optimized the performance. And part of that process, we actually evaluated 3 different carburetors. The first one was a Holley 670 Street Avenger with a vacuum secondary. The second one we tested was a Holley Brawler 650 double pumper with a mechanical secondary. And the last one we tested was a Quick Fuel 750 Slayer with vacuum secondary. The dyno test also allowed us to have definitive data on important performance parameters such as average horsepower and torque, maximum horsepower and torque, brake-specific fuel consumption, and volumetric efficiency. For comparison purposes, the GTO is 389 with a 4-barrel carburetor. That was the base engine for the GTO in 65. Its advertised horsepower was 335. I'm going to put up a screenshot here for you of the engine actually in the dyno cell and also a screenshot of the control booth. And I'm also going to include right here a short video that I shot while the team was setting up the engine in the dyno and getting ready for the first dyno run. After multiple dyno pulls with each carb, we had the best performance with the timing set at 36 degrees, and we had the best performance with the Quick Fuel 750 Slayer carburetor. I'm also going to put up a shot right here, an image of the corrected horsepower and torque curves from the final run on the dyno. And as you can see, the peak horsepower was 357.4 at 5,000 RPM and a peak torque of 422.6 pound-feet at 3,900 RPM. Not bad for a mostly stock build. If you'd like to see the full dyno test, and I really recommend that you do check this out, I'm going to put a link in the description of this video where you can take and go to Alan's YouTube channel and see that full dyno test. And it's pretty amazing. I highly recommend that you check that out. I can honestly say that the dyno test was one of my most memorable parts of this restoration, and it was absolutely thrilling to watch that engine run on the dyno. And now I have complete confidence that my engine is nearly bulletproof. If you're ever looking for someone to build you an engine, I highly recommend you contact Alan Gold of Gold's Garage. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. And if you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and please subscribe to the channel. There's more to come, and I wouldn't want you to miss the rest of this adventure. The last clip is the completed engine running in my car, and man, what a sweet sound. Thanks for watching.
Engine runs beautifully smooth, nice and smooth, thanks to Alan Gold of Gold's Garage, who did the engine rebuild for me. And she's a pretty healthy little motor.